The resurrection is the one that is the most difficult for people to swallow.
Who gets back up 3 days later after he gets murdered in public?
Would you like to know Jesus?
What way?
I can put my pastor on your show.
In my life, I just had way too many for me to ever be convinced it's not him.
I just found faith a couple months ago.
Get in the throne room, hurl yourself at the foot of the cross.
I hope that what I'm about to bring to you, you find fascinating. I've put together a compilation of a bunch of people in our media world that they're either wrestling in faith or they have come to faith. And they're just trying to figure it out, or they have landed where they feel like God has for them. But give it a listen. This is fascinating. This is the wrestling into faith or wrestling with faith. So here it comes.
The resurrection is the one that is the most difficult for people to swallow.
Yes.
That's the one that requires
The most faith and the most belief, yeah, resurrection. Who gets back up 3 days later after he gets murdered in public? Who gets back up under his own power?
You believe that was a real event?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
What brought you to that belief? Is this something that you've always had, or is it something you studied it and you've come to this conclusion because of the historical accounts? And
Yes. Just recently, they verified the Shroud of Turin. Have you seen that?
I've been reading about it, and I know that there's some contention, there's some discussion and debate about it, but they used to think that it was only a couple hundred years old.
Yeah.
And now they've changed that.
They said, no, it's back then.
They also don't understand how it was made, which to me is very fascinating because it's not paint. They don't know what caused the image itself and how that technology would have even been available.
It wasn't.
A couple thousand years ago. If you could go to one place, where would you go? If you had one shot, you can go back in time once and survive and come back to the future, where would you go? Jesus. But what if there was nobody there?
Even better, I get them
What
all
if
to
you-
myself, just me and Jesus.
No. What if Jesus wasn't there? What if you go back? I just want to go see Jesus. And you're like, what time?
He'd be there. He'd probably like a DJ back then. He's there.
Do you think there's a real Jesus? Definitely.
Absolutely. 1,000%.
What makes you convinced?
My faith.
That's a good answer. I always wonder when people are telling stories, though, how long did that story take before people wrote it down? How many times did people alter it, just like they do with everything today? I got to imagine that at a certain point in time in history, they probably didn't tell the truth about a lot of things. And we take those things, tell them through oral traditions, have them written down.
Well, there's a difference between lies and between the truth getting manipulated and twisted a little bit. Mm-hmm. The underlying usually is still there.
So you think the real truth was that he actually was the Son of God?
Yes.
It'd be amazing if it was true.
It is amazing.
I believe you. I believe that you believe that.
Would you like to be introduced to Jesus?
Listen, I think the concept of Jesus is absolutely amazing. And if Jesus came here and wanted to visit me, I would be psyched.
Would you like to know Jesus?
In what way?
I can put my pastor on your show.
I'm good.
Talk about Jesus.
I'm very interested in the idea of Jesus being a real person. But I look at it the same way I look at everything else.
Let's circle
what
back.
the words
Let's
are.
circle back. You told me that you believed in Bigfoot.
No, I was joking around. But I wanted Bigfoot to be real, for sure. Just like I want Jesus to be real.
Jesus is everywhere. He's in this room. He's in the world. He's in the universe. By the aliens that you want so desperately to be real or have the concept of them being real, that is Jesus.
You're not explaining it. You're saying how you feel.
Jesus
It's
and
like,
God are everywhere. They're everywhere. Every time you look at a flower that blooms or you look at one of your children, that's Jesus. That is Jesus. That is God.
I want to be real clear. Not like
I just saw a shooting star. That's God going, bang, nailed it.
So that's every 30 seconds.
I just happen to be speaking passionately
They do
about
it the whole
Jesus and
time.
God. And that whoop.
But that's how confirmation bias happens. That's what makes people believe certain things, like that Jesus sent that suit. Maybe you timed it right.
That's Jesus.
It could be coincidental.
That's Jesus.
I don't purport to know how it works, but I know what happened that day.
I love hearing that.
I feel like there's no avoiding it. There's just no avoiding it. It's just too present, these reminders. If you just pay a modicum of attention, you'll see it. I don't know how one couldn't see it. There's only so many things you can write off as, oh, that's a coincidence, oh, that means nothing. In my life, I just had way too many for me to ever be convinced it's not him. It's not an otherworldly force trying to communicate something to me. And I also think it's just, there's so much hubris behind the notion that, well, you're wrong. It's over. It's done. How do you know? We're so fragile and we know almost nothing. I love these big swinging, right, guys who are, and gals. No, it's just a no. Who the hell knows? We need to be humble enough to know that. As I said, I'm not devout, so I don't comply with a lot of the other rules. I do eat meat on Fridays during Lent. I just don't think I'm gonna get punished for that. Right? Things like that. The scaffolding has been non-objectionable to me for most of my life. It's only now that it's becoming objectionable. And so that's leading me to figure some things out, right? I told you I tried some different scaffolding over at the Episcopal Church, and that didn't go well. We went to a Methodist church in Manhattan. It was a variety show. That was a no.
Have you noticed this wave of Christianity just moving across the globe here? Did you see the party at, what was it? I think it was Georgia State. It was all these kids tailgating at a football game, and it looked wild. They did a big story on it.
Wait, were they?
They were getting baptized in the back of trucks. Hundreds, maybe thousands of kids.
What? No, I have not seen this.
You haven't seen that?
No.
It's just awesome. It's cool to see.
Wow. Thank God. Praise God.
But
that's the solution.
So, I just found faith a couple months ago. I grew up a Catholic, and when I joined the SEAL teams and some of the things that I saw, it just destroyed my faith for the better part of 20 years.
That you saw in the SEAL teams or that you saw in your faith?
In the SEAL teams. And that just carried on until literally a couple months ago. I had a pretty profound incident. The way I describe it is everywhere I looked, I hated what I saw, and I started vocalizing it. And when I started vocalizing it, I hit a point, there was a day where God showed up, and instead of everywhere I looked, what I saw, what I hated, everywhere I looked, he was right there talking to me. And literally, I had 5 or 6 different things happen within 48 hours. And it was incredible.
I felt like there's something else in here. And I'd also become disillusioned with fame a lot of times. And suddenly I'm deluged first with wave after wave of attack of you're a conspiracy theorist, then what seemed to me very particular, bespoke and constructed attacks based on historic sexual behavior, which forced me to recognize that the two things I'd been in practice worshipping, fame and sex, that these two idols turned like serpents and became the vehicles of not my destruction, but the destruction of the previous identity and idol that I'd worshipped. My beautiful son was born with a condition called tetralogy of Fallot, an open heart surgery of a 12-week-old baby. The conversation where surgeons and anesthetists tell you are aware of the risks, that all of the systems I had couldn't contain it. In the midst of the personal apocalypse and the white noise chaos that followed, there he is on the cross and above it. Somehow all of this is enough for me to say, oh, it's over, it is done, it is finished. Nothing can take what you have. Nothing can take the amount of devotion that you have to give. Get in the throne room, hurl yourself at the foot of the cross now and gorge yourself.
Let me know your thoughts in the comments.